between the lions. Come on, come in, begin. The world awaits. Between the lions, between the covers of the book, it's time to look between the lions. Behold the tales, beyond the tales, behind the door. Become explore. Come in between the lions. Begin between the lions. Be here between the lions.
Hey now, hey wow, come and see. You know, I really should have had the lyrics in front of me. That would have made that a better intro.
Is this like slam poetry? What is this?
Well, I mean,
No, I'm just joking. I know what that is, Will. I just watched the episode.
I know. I was like, you know what this is? Come on, we're professionals here. Welcome everybody to another episode of For the Kids, a PBS Kids podcast, and this is one that I think a few people have been looking forward to, have been wanting us to cover for a little while. We are going in between the lions for this one. So my name's Will Young. Lucas Mancini, if I remember correctly, you have something of a history or maybe even an affinity for Between the Lions.
That's right. Between the Lions, and I think I said this with Sagwa as well, that Sagwa was either the show that came before or right after Arthur.
Yes.
And Between the Lions would be the show that was on the other side of that 3-show block. So Between the Lions also either came before or after, I can't quite remember, during the era where I was watching Arthur when it was, new. And so I have quite a bit of experience with Between the Lions. Between the Lions was one of my favorite PBS shows at the time. I really, really enjoyed it when I was a little kid.
Okay, so you say little kid. Now, the early 2000s, let's say the period of 2000 to 2002. How old would you have been at that point?
So for me, it's really easy to remember because I'm always in the same grade as it is the year. So in 2002, I was in grade 2. In 2003, I was in grade 3. So how old's a grade 2?
Grade 2 is 7? I want to say like 7 years old.
Yeah, so I would have been 7 or 8.
Okay, so you would have been like in the ages of 5 to 7. So this would have been the appropriate age for you when this was coming out. So that's good. That's good to know. Yeah, and I have pretty much the complete opposite of this. I never ever really watched this show, but it's not because of any. Well, maybe it is. So when you would have been, say, 5 to 7 years old, I would have been 10 to 12. So, and 10 to really 17 as far as the show's run goes. But I was far beyond the age range that Between the Lions was even going for. So it's something that completely passed me by. I never really took a look at it. The farthest I got was the theme song. So and then it'd be like, okay, well, here comes the show that I don't really. I feel like it was also on a bit later. You mentioned its proximity to Arthur. I feel like it was maybe like even as late as 6 o'clock or maybe 5:30 when I would be watching PBS.
I'm trying to remember. It's my memory of like that era of TV watching so like foggy. I know that like Pokemon. I don't remember if Pokemon was on every day. Pokemon might not have been on every day, but I remember that like it was getting close to the age where Pokemon was definitely like in the 4:30, 4 o'clock time slot
Very
whenever
much
it
so.
Came on.
Yes.
So I know that I would definitely not be passing, as much as I liked Between the Lions, I'm not passing Pokemon to watch it. So yeah, I'm not sure. I just remember it was in close proximity to Arthur. It must have been after. I think Sagwa was before, and I would probably always catch the end of Sagwa, and then Between the Lions came afterwards.
Do you know something? One of these days, I actually own a little piece of, I guess it's technically wrestling memorabilia, but it's an old TV guide from, I think, 1998. An old edition of Kids TV Guide was a magazine, a weekly magazine that you could buy at the grocery store counter, and it would tell you the TV listings. In fact, we used to get TV Guide every single week, and besides going to Channel 8 and looking up the scrolling, the thing that scrolls every couple of seconds and tells you what's coming on in the next couple of hours.
Which, by the way, I don't know if you've done that recently, because that's the scrolling channel thing still exists, and I think it's a combination of, I feel like they have made it slower, but also I feel like that all of our attention spans have been like greatly decreased.
I don't know.
Now trying to kind of retain any sort of useful information from that thing at all is like pulling teeth. Because they'll show you like 3 channels at a time, and then the rest of the screen is just a big ol' ad. And it's so painful, because especially like you get bored, you start looking at your phone, and you always happen to start looking at your phone at the time where it's like showing the 3 channels that you actually care about, and then you have to like watch the whole cycle over again. It's brutal.
I think death, taxes, and the channel guide being too slow are the 3 truths of life. But yes, I have watched it recently. It's intolerable, especially now that most TVs have the channel guide built into it. It's just completely unnecessary. But yes, TV Guide was literally, you would buy the magazine. It would have like articles and stuff like that. So like I have one that I got at a wrestling show that's actually was funny. Basically, I had I want to say like a $5 bill or something, and I wanted to get this wrestler's piece of merchandise that was like $2. And he was like, sorry, my I don't have any change and my wallet's in the car. Instead of like giving you $3 back, do you want this old TV guide with Sable on the cover? WWF superstar Sable? And I was
this
like,
was before you told me that Sable was on the cover, and now I'm like, you made out like a bandit. This was starting to sound like a bad deal. Will. That's good stuff. When I was at PEI the other day, there was I went to a vintage resale store, and the guy's like star featured piece of merchandise was like a Sable shirt from the 90s with like an all over print, and he was like, "Yeah, it'll be $120."
Oh man. Did you get it?
No.
Okay.
I didn't.
Understood. So yeah, one of these days, what I was leading to is one of these days I would like to look up that TV guide and then just maybe go through a couple of days of PBS programming back in the day, just so you could see what it was like to watch that channel from, let's say, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on a normal weekday. Anyway, that's for later. For right now, we're talking about Between the Lions, which I think is, at least among the people who enjoyed it, has a very endearing and lasting legacy that we're going to be talking about here today, as well as a full episode of Between the Lions. So Lucas coming at it from the perspective of someone who watched it all the time, me coming from the perspective of having practically never watched it. Maybe clips here and there in my adulthood, but really not much more than that. So let's talk a little bit about the history of Between the Lions. I also want to note right up front, one of our great patrons put a link in the Discord to the Defunct TV YouTube video, The History of Between the Lions, which I'm going to be pulling from, and I will note I will tell you when one of my notes is from the Defunct Land video. Check out their YouTube channel. I love Defunct Land, and I was very happy that this turned up as part of my research, and they did a great job in chronicling the behind-the-scenes history of Between the Lions. So please feel free to watch that video. It's very good, and it's pretty short, too. So Between the Lions was a co-production between WGBH in Boston and a company called Serious Thinking in New York City. They still have a website. Their mission statement is specializing in the creation of mission-driven children's educational entertainment. And we'll get into it a little bit later, but Mississippi Public Broadcasting was also a big part of Between the Lions, kind of halfway through its tenure. So originally, I don't know if this was entirely obvious to you when you were watching, Lucas, but it was intended as kind of a companion show to Sesame Street.
Yeah, I totally, and I noticed that immediately, in that it's like kind of like a variety show.
Yes, and even more directly, so there's a whole lot of, sometimes we talk about shows on For the Kids, and it's like, oh, there's a bunch of people who worked on Arthur, or there's people who worked on this other show. So this is like a bunch of people who worked for both Sesame Street and the Jim Henson Company as performers, as writers. So like some of the executive producers include Lou Berger, who we may have mentioned formerly in the Reading Rainbow episode. He helped launch Reading Rainbow as a former head writer for Sesame Street. Christopher Surf, an author and composer who helped launch Sesame Street, compose music for it and other Muppet productions, and compose the theme for Between the Lions. Former creative director of Jim Henson Company, Michael K. Frith, and his wife, Catherine Mullen, who is a Muppeteer and voice actor on many Muppet projects, including this one, the main puppeteer for Leona Lion, and Norman Stiles, who wrote for Sesame Street. Norman Stiles, I found this interesting. So he was an executive producer for Between the Lions. He is credited as being the person who wrote the Death of Mr. Hooper segment. Are you familiar with that, Lucas?
Yes, I remember. R.I.P. to the legend, Mr. Hooper.
Yeah, so that's a big thing to hang your hat on, and there's a reason why it's synonymous with his name. So they wanted to create this show that specifically focused on reading skills for younger viewers. It aired from April 2000 to November 2010, 10 seasons of 130 episodes. So the first episode of the show, I think the one that we chose for today is not the first episode. But to give you an idea of what it cost, it took 6 years to make that initial episode, and it cost over $30 million to produce. And that was that was from Defunct TV. That fact there. Yeah, I know, right?
Oh my goodness.
$30 million.
And you know what? It makes sense, though, because when I was watching the... oh, by the way, FBI, stop listening to this part. I was watching the YouTube video that you sent me.
Yes.
And in the suggested video feed, it's all these like VHS rips.
Yeah.
So I feel like a big part of the show wasn't only that they were kind of broadcasting it in syndication, but also that they would sell individual tapes of these 30-minute episodes. Because unlike some of the other shows we've watched where they feel like, okay, this is like for instance, like you couldn't just... I would be really disappointed as a kid if someone bought me a VHS tape of Sagwa, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And I just got to watch this one episode of Sagwa over and over again. Whereas these feel a little bit different, like some other educational videotapes from this era feel, in that they're supposed to be like rewatched over and over, or there's like so much material in, even though it's packed in the same amount of time, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
They feel more like standalone. The episodes feel more standalone than a part of a greater series.
Did you notice as well in this particular video file that we watched?
Oh yeah, by the way, the FBI all of our FBI Patreon subscribers, you can start listening again.
So yeah, when we paid to watch that episode of Between the Lions, did you notice that the opening crawl of like sponsors was it felt a bit longer to me than normal. So I imagine that's by design.
And it's funny, I'm not surprised that it cost so much money, because I was thinking like, wow, a lot of government money went into making this show when they were listing kind of all of the public broadcasting and funding corporations and all the non-for-profits, and then also just, state governments putting in money to get this show off the ground. It's not actually that surprising to me that the first episode cost $30 million.
And Cheerios as well. So this was one of the ones that, I mean, that's no surprise. Like I remember, Fruit Loops and Juicy Juice like sponsored other shows. So it
that's a tax write-off, baby.
By the way, in the opening crawl, tag yourself. I'm the Arthur Vining Davis Foundation. And I don't know. I just always liked that name. It always stuck in my head. And the Carnegie Corporation, another great name. So yeah, the idea was that Between the Lions wanted to teach reading skills, which we see a lot throughout this one episode that we watched, and instill a love for reading in a young audience. So kind of similar to where Arthur started out, to kind of make that love of reading. And of course, the show takes place in the library. And it's all about kind of vocabulary skills. That's where it kind of came from. And from what I understand, this is another thing from the Defunct Land video. The show was very successful in this goal, and was also a hit in the ratings and with parents who were thankful for a television show that wasn't screaming all the time. So it was back in those days of just like, cartoons are screaming at my kids all the time. Why can't it teach them something?
Which is something my parents did used to say. I remember, like, whenever I would be watching one of my favorite childhood shows, Sticking Around, my mom would detest the character of Dill. She even knew him by name because she dreaded his presence so.
Well, it's interesting you say that as well, because I imagine your mom also liked this because, as we've mentioned on the show before, she's a librarian. So there was a big reading and book focus on the show.
Yeah, no, actually, I do remember that this was... it's funny that you say that, Will, that this was a big hit with parents, because I recall this being one of my mom's favorite shows for me to watch as a young kid.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to quickly go back to the fact, so we mentioned that, WGBH Boston, Serious Thinking, and NYC kind of got the show off the ground. I found it interesting, halfway through the show's tenure, they were like running out of money because, it's an expensive show to produce. So Mississippi Public Broadcasting stepped in to offer funding, crew, and studio space for what would become seasons 5 to 10 because they reported Mississippi was one of the places where a study was done that showed that kids watching Between the Lions showed improvement in their vocabulary and reading skills. So it was really like putting forth good money for something that they believed in. So after 10 seasons, Between the Lions was done. There was a planned animated spinoff that never really got off the ground. It kind of began production. There was a couple of shorts produced, but it didn't make it to series, and that's one more from the Defunct Land video. But while it was on TV, it was a big winner of 7 Daytime Emmy Awards, and it was nominated for a lot of awards too, for stuff like pretty much everything. I mean, Outstanding Preschool Children's Series, Writing in a Children's Series, Original Song, Art Direction, Set Direction, Scenic Design, Costume Design, Styling, Directing, Musical Composition. Basically, every aspect of the show has been celebrated by the Academy, and it seems by parents and by the people who remember watching it as kids. So it really became apparent to me that I was going to have to pay extra attention to see what all the fuss was about as we got down to watching this episode. And the episode we decided to watch is from the first season. It's called Little Big Mouse. As always, we need to start off by talking about the theme song composed by one of the executive producers, Christopher Surf, and performed by a lady named Cindy Mizell, who, among many other things, is a backup singer for Bruce Springsteen. The Between the Lions theme song.
Yes.
We're back. We are back. After a little bit of a dip last time on For the Kids, this one's a vibe.
Will?
Yep.
I would go as far as to say, of all the shows we've watched thus far on For the Kids, and keep in mind there's been some heaters. Reading Rainbow, Wishbone, the list goes on and on. Even Sagwa kind of had me vibing a little bit.
Sure.
Aaron Carter. We have stars such as Aaron Carter performing theme songs.
We've been very lucky.
I would go as far as to say, this is my personal opinion.
Yes.
The Between the Lions theme song is the best one yet.
The best one. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I think it's the best PBS kids show theme song we have yet to discuss on the show. I mean, so first thing first, we get this kind of for lack of a better term, this is not the right term. This is like a hardcore thing, but like gang vocals. We get this. I forget I'm tired. I had a long day of work today. But a chorus, right? Chorus.
Sure.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's just a bunch of people saying the same stuff. The difference between that and gang vocals is they're not talking about like brotherhood or going back on your oath or whatever. Anyway, we get this chorus and it sounds huge. Like it's got that like big like Disney. Like I'm thinking like Disney's like
it sounds like The Lion King.
Yeah, it sounds like The Lion King, but the difference between this is The Lion King, where The Lion King goes Elton John.
Yes.
This goes like totally like Paul Simon Graceland with the instrumentation.
Oh, wow.
Like that's what it would have reminded me of. It's like all the chorus sounds huge. It sounds massive. And then you get this like this Paul Simon Graceland instrumentation. And you know me, I like Vampire Weekend. I love the Paul Simon Graceland album. I like African high life music. So that's like that particularly tickles my fancy. That placates to my tastes. So I was like, wow, this is so cool. I was a big fan of the Between the Lines theme song. What did you think, Will?
Oh, I loved it. I think it's great. It's just too bad it's only like a minute long, because after a minute I'm starting to get into it. I'm like, oh no, it's over. So that's the only memory of the show that I have from my childhood. And you're right, it is a really well put together song. The only thing I'd say would challenge it for the top spot for me would be Reading Rainbow. But and I have to think about that. But in both cases, Between the Lines, Reading Rainbow, they both have extremely strong vocals and a very good hook. And there's a real drive. There's a real giddy up to the Between the Lions. Like it moves, and I just really want a full version of it. So I hope it exists somewhere out there. But I figured we'd be on the same page. On the same page about that.
Oh.
And speaking of pages, so Between the Lions is about a family of lions at a fictional library who I guess they run the library, because at this first part here, there's a father, a mother, and two kids. So the father, Theo Lion, is trying to file books, but he keeps getting distracted because they look too interesting. And one of them is actually Charlotte's Web, which I thought they were going to start reading at first.
Yeah, no, so we don't really see any other patrons of this library in this episode. I don't know if there's other episodes where, like, people actually show up and try to borrow a book.
You see them in the background here and there. Like, it took me till the end of the episode. I'm like, oh my god, there's humans here. Like, people are at this library with the lions.
It's very concerning. It's like that Louis C.K. bit about how we should just, like, release regular lions. Now that I'm rewatching the intro, there is, like, people just walking around very nonchalant.
It's easy to miss, yeah. Because, of course, there's a Muppet directly in your face.
Well, so let's talk about this. This was the first thing after the theme song that I noticed, is that the look of this show is really timeless in the similar way that Sesame Street is. And I've talked about this before, too, about how things like... I'm a big fan of puppets, Will. I don't know if you've heard of a little movie called Gremlins 2: The New Batch.
No.
It's one of the best American films ever made.
Fun fact, I actually have a fact about Gremlins that will come up later.
That's exciting stuff, Will.
Please go on.
So yeah, I oh man, now I'm like, what is the Gremlins fact? I love the look of puppets. I always find that they look really timeless on camera. And I've always been a big proponent to, if you can use a puppet, do that instead of a special effect. And I found that the set of the library, whether it's a green screen behind the lions or it's actually like a physical space they're in, and the lion puppets themselves, there's a quality to them where I think the show looks really timeless. And I feel like, you could plop this, obviously it's in 4:3 and we're watching kind of like a blurrier video, but like when we watch other shows from 2001, that's one of the first things we always comment on is how 2001 they all look, right? Like Liberty's Kids and Redwall have a very specific look to them of that era. Between the Lions, like I feel like you could show this to someone today and they would think it was made very recently.
Yes, and I mean that is the advantage of using, I mean, it's weird to call them this, but Muppets and practical effects is that there's
but it's also not just that they're Muppets, it's that they're a high quality too. Like the Father Lion puppet looks great. Like if you look back at stuff like Nanoland, well, and it's part of that show's charm.
Oh, don't say Muppets and Nanoland in the same sentence. My God,
it's part of that show's charm. We should probably talk about Nanoland one of these days.
Oh man,
it was it was on Treehouse, right? It was never on PBS.
It was not on PBS. Listen, I'll put it on the side list next to Yvonne of the Yukon and Sticking Around, and maybe we'll get to it.
But these puppets are of a certain quality and detail where they really look exceptional.
Yeah, and what's more, they're so they're expressive in the way a lot of good Muppets are, like their eyes, their gestures, and that just goes to all of the puppeteers in the show, the Muppeteers, excuse me, who are really very good at their job. So there are a lot of different vignettes in the show, and then there's kind of one narrative through line, and this is kind of where we get to that through line here.
Very similar to the way Sesame Street works, in that there's going to be a plot line running through the show that takes place on the titular street with all your favorite characters, Big Bird and all them, and then in between kind of these vignettes is all these like returning animated, well actually mixed media segments that kind of return from episode to episode. And I believe Between the Lines is the same way. I could provide a little bit more insight and context, Will, where it's like all these segments that we see, I feel like it's not like original different ones in every episode. Like once we get into these different little individual segments, I think that they use the exact same segments but with different words for every episode of Between the Lines.
Yeah, and I know that...
I've never seen this episode before, but I remember seeing all of these segments.
And I know that there's a couple of other segments we didn't see. Like, there's specifically a couple that we missed out on, which is too bad. There's maybe the most famous one is Cliffhanger, which we didn't get to see in this episode. So, yeah, the main thrust kind of starts here when Theo is reading the book The Lion and the Mouse, and it's all about a mouse. It's kind of like an Aesop fable, where the mouse...
I believe it is.
It is an Aesop fable, right? Yeah. The mouse encounters the lion, and the lion decides to spare the mouse, and then later the mouse saves the lion from being killed by poachers. What I liked here is when they will show the text on screen, and as they read it, there'll be like a yellow highlight that goes over it. It reminds me of those interactive storybook CD-ROMs. There's a bunch of Arthur ones that you may have encountered as a kid.
I remember those.
Yeah, and they would always do that to make sure that you were following along exactly where they were. So it's a little animation. The animation, I have to be honest, in this particular part, reminded me of two things. First of all, reminded me of Kimba the Lion, which Your Movie Sucks did a recent YouTube video about it, and it's kind of, not the greatest animation in the world. And it also reminded me of that viral video, that one of the dinosaur that goes, yee.
Oh, I believe yee.
Yeah, so it kind of reminded me of that a little bit. So they go through the story as it is in the book, and then Cleo, the mother lion, goes between the covers in kind of this fake news setting. And
Which I quickly realized that this is probably a thing they do in almost every episode. This is like a part of Cleo's character, is that she could go between the covers. But just jumping in without that context, I was like, this is very high concept.
I know. This is throwing a lot of things at us right away. So I'll say this, the show really kept me on my toes. So it's literally like they would have put up a green screen so that the puppet is interacting with the animation. It's actually pretty cool. And looks fairly convincing for what they're trying to pull off. And just trying to... Because they go between the covers to ask the lion, like, why did you spare the mouse? And to try and find, like, the motivation behind what the lion did, instead of just taking it at face value.
And there's this cute, really, like, kitschy, like... They present it as if it's a news, like, a street report. Like,
yes.
It's presented as if she's like a news reporter interviewing the lion, and like we have this kind of the insert BTC, the between the covers like network, and we have the little live ticker in the corner, and she's like puts on like a raincoat inexplicably, which is pretty funny.
Right, yeah, and eventually when she gets taken out of the book, she like falls from the ceiling. It's a little violent. Must also mention here that they are joined by Click the mouse, who is, I think, one of the other kind of main-ish characters that's around a lot. So Click eventually gets jealous because the children, Lionel and Leona, want to make a fan club for the little mouse that saved the lion, and Click feels a little dejected that nobody is making a fan club for them. But from the storybook, a hand takes the sound it from a word. And this is where we start to get into those unrelated vignettes that are all about vocabulary. So we'll kind of talk about them in turn here. So our first one is the Vowels, which is a group of Motown singers.
And I was going to say, Will, you were lamenting how short the opening theme song was. Well, don't worry. The great music in this episode keeps up. This little ditty is awesome.
Yeah, no, it's very catchy. So the Vowels are basically, it's a black screen. There's a couple of sets of like differently colored lips and hands, like gloves.
Live action, right? They're real life people in front of like some sort of green screen or something.
And then there's a main singer that's a puppet of like a Motown singer. So they're singing about the short I sound in hit. So I. And it's a fun little song, and it doesn't last for very long. So enough to get in your head, and then they're on to the next thing. It's like a good comedy show or a good comedy movie. It's like we just watched Naked Gun recently, and it's like as long as the punchlines keep coming, you don't have time to think about the ones that don't work. And I think as we go through this,
Speaking of coming, it is coming because we get the statue bust.
I think as we go through this, we should note which ones were our favorite, because there's so many different styles that I think ones would definitely appeal to us over others. But you're right, it is coming. So there's 2 pigeons who roost in the top of the library, and they're running in fear of it. And there's also a living statue of Barnaby Busterfield III, who the library is named after. And it's, it is coming, and just different ways that you can use it in a sentence.
And Barnaby Busterfield's kind of like a grumpy, like Sattler and Waldorf kind of, like that kind of archetype. This was where I started to really remember. It was that feeling when you're watching something where you feel like you had forgotten it, and now it's rushing back to the forefront of your memory.
Yeah.
This was the stuff where I was like, oh, I remember like the statue bust guy, like the original dance number that came before this, not so much, but this is where I started to really take a trip down memory lane with this show.
A
about
trip?
some things. Oh my goodness!
We're setting each other up like nobody's business. So a trip, which concerns our next animation, which has to do with a golfer named Tiger Woods, who is looking to win a trip to Tripoli. This is where, so of course it's a children's show. There's a lot of repetition, and there's a lot of focus on different sounds that words make. So this is where you really get the sort of ASMR quality, like the repetition of particular sounds, real close to ASMR in this segment. Where
Tiger Woods, this was my favorite segment for Between the Lines back in the day. Like when I saw this, then I was really remembering the show and how much I enjoyed it, because this was a segment that would return from episode to episode, where he would spell the word, and he would bring out all these objects and stuff, and it was all animated in this specific style. And something that really struck me is something you pointed out, is it's ASMR not only in that it's people like in a really breathy way saying these word sounds over and over again, but I feel like they've intentionally recorded it with like the gain way up or what have you.
Sure.
Because it sounds like the microphone is in people's mouths sometime, and all the voices in the Tiger. It's because it's replicating a golf announcer, right? And a golf announcer has a very specific cadence of, and he takes out the 9-iron, and he's coming out into the field, and so they're kind of replicating that type of speaking. And so there's something very soothing, but all the sounds are also very soothing, like the sound of his marker and his little like erase sounds. So yeah, style, voice acting, and just like nostalgia. I really liked Tiger Woods.
Well, and the animation looks really cool too. A lot of it is very simplistic drawings done in like marker, and it's just very appealing to look at. And so it's about Tiger Woods, not golfing, but kind of doing kind of golfing type strokes in writing down words. This was my favorite for now. It would get replaced eventually. Let's move on to the next one. It is the Unpeople. So was this also a regular segment?
So I can't remember, but I was just really struck by how much this looks like Codename Kids Next Door.
Oh, you're right. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, because all of these animated segments look different from one another.
They're totally different art styles from segment to segment, and some of them aren't even animated, right? So
the Unpeople is teaching kids what happens when you add the prefixes un and re to some words. So there's the Unpeople, who kind of mess things up by adding un to a word, and then there's the re people, who are like superheroes and add them. So it has to do with like putting rhinoceri into a bag, and then the bag is zipped. No, it's unzipped, and the rhinos get out, and then it's like, no, it's re-zipped. So they're fine now. And this is where I also had the note of like these shorter segments have the feel of the quick Sesame Street vignettes, where it's like it doesn't necessarily tie into any narrative structure or anything, but they're interesting to look at, and it's almost impossible to get bored of them. After this one, definitely didn't see this one coming. Gawain's Word.
Oh yeah, Gawain's World is So I almost put, and I still might after we record this, put Gawain's World on my Instagram story.
Yeah, totally.
Because specifically because of the word they're using in this episode of Gawain's World. This is like, I would go as far as to say, is Gawain's World's insane.
It's just, you think about it, and it's like it's the year 2000. Now, granted, like we said, The first episode of the show, and probably some of the other ones, took years to make. But it's amazing that they stuck with the Wayne's World parody. It's literally this is live action, so it's people dressed in like night costumes. But it's Gawain's word. Hey, what's up, dude? I'm Gawain, and welcome to my segment. And it's like, whoa.
Look,
what a rush.
90% of this is references to stuff kids will have no point of reference for, right?
It ages
so it's like
every year.
So it's like, okay, first of all, we're talking about like Gawain the Knight from like Arthurian fantasy. Mm-hmm. So already that's going to be a whole segment of kids who are not familiar with Gawains. They don't even get that joke. And then we have a parody of Wayne's World, which when did Wayne's World come out? And the movie was already after the SNL sketch. Wayne's World.
Well, Wayne's World 2 was like 1992?
Wayne's World 1 was 92.
Oh, excuse me. When was Wayne's World 2? Was that 94?
Oh, no, 93. Back to back.
Okay, so...
And then the sketches would have been, in the late 80s, early 90s.
Totally. So what it is that it's two knights having a duel, and eventually when they come to a head, they bring a word together. So one knight is representing T with a capital T, and the other one is Ickle. And it's Gawain doing his Wayne impression, his Mike Myers Wayne impression, as T and Ickle come together to make Tickle. I was flabbergasted. I couldn't believe it.
Well, yeah, and so, to describe it to you listeners, it's as the knights are getting closer, they keep repeating their part. So, the T guy's T, and then the Ickle guy's Ickle, Ickle, Ickle. And it's just this whole situation's absurd. They're in night costumes. They're riding.
They're on those little pony toys.
Yeah, those stick with the horse head on it. This guy's talking like a stoner. It's so strange.
And the strangeness continues because we get into another segment called "What's Cooking," which is a Muppet.
Oh yeah, I forgot that it cuts back to the audience all going nuts.
Yeah,
and then the knight tickles him. He's tickling him through his armor. This is bizarre.
So what's cooking with Theo and Cleo? And I'm to understand this is also a regular segment.
This is a segment where I'm glad we're on Elwood City Limits. We try to keep it pretty clean. Number one family friendly podcast in the city of Halifax. This is one of those segments where I'm glad we're behind the paywall on this one.
Yeah, me too.
This is take it away.
Gee, thanks. So they're looking to prepare ribs. There's a big comical stack of Flintstones ribs. But they keep, talking about tickling the ribs. That's there's instructions that Cleo is reading from, and then they keep kind of tickling each other. It's a little HORNY.
I think my note says this feels intentionally erotic.
Erotic. Oh, man. Yeah, well, you know what? That's at least a little classier, so let's go with that.
He's tickling the ribs with a stick. By the way, it's a stick from the woods that they put a sticker on that's labeled stick.
Yeah.
And he's in the original Adam West Batman show or something. And he's tickling these ribs while he's getting tickled, and everybody's just kind of doing these giggles where they're and the whole thing is just deeply uncomfortable. And then they get to the part where they're oh, we gotta pickle the tickled ribs.
Yeah.
And the pickling process is gonna take 24 hours. So instead, they are saying forget about it, and then the camera just zooms in on this uncooked meat, and I'm just cut to my face, just mouth agape, going what am I watching here?
Thankfully, it's over as quickly as it begins. But hey, at least Theo and Cleo seem to have a very healthy union. We get back into a little bit of the main story here, where the kids are making a fan website for the mouse in the story, and Click feels ignored by Lionel and Leona. In fact, they sing a song about it. The Click heard round the world. And this gets into a little bit of a music video. And
yeah, Click, basically the singularity happens, and Click goes digital.
Just rolling around in cyberspace. It actually got kind of soulful. I actually ended up getting caught up in it a little bit, because I was okay, musical number, I'm going to have some more breakfast, and I'm oh, wait a second. this is kind of all right. Like you said, some very good music in this episode.
Yeah, it's like a rock opera style, like Rock of Ages, like Rocky Horror Picture Show, just musicals with rock in the name, kind of performance from Click about how they don't get the credit they deserve. Lots of funny jokes about Click, like downloading things.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then the singing monkeys.
Yeah, the singing monkeys. How did I forget? And we're not even done with monkeys in this episode.
Oh, I know, and I was excited. Will, we must have talked. I think we've talked about on ECL how monkeys are big right now. I don't know if you've noticed, but the internet it's got monkey fever. I think that we're all trying to escape the horrors of coronavirus the best way we can, and we figured out that the antithesis of just doom scrolling is looking at funny monkey videos. things like Monkey Flip. I don't know if you've seen Monkey Flip or Monkey Flip 2.
I don't think so. No.
It's some pretty good stuff. Anyway, if you ever wanted some serotonin, monkey videos is the place to be. So imagine my delight when I saw the singing monkeys, and that's not, like you said, Will, that's not even the last of the monkeys.
My goodness, no. We get a very, very brief interlude here where real-life operatic mezzo-soprano singer Denise Graves sings the word sit.
I was watching the show, I was like, man, this show's really got a lot of variety, huh? And now that we're, like, talking through it, I'm like, this show is such a fever dream.
I mean, you wonder where kids who grew up with this get their sense of humor. And it's just like, it's kind of from this. It's just like, it's just thing after thing after thing, and it doesn't have to make sense. Just keep going. Don't even think about it too hard.
It makes me wonder, and this might be a conversation more so for the end of the episode, but it's been a while since I've watched Sesame Street. I feel like even Sesame Street would let its bits kind of sit and marinate for a little bit longer than Between the Lions. Like, Between the Lions feels much more just like, boom, 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 next segment, next segment, next segment.
I'll be interested to kind of compare it when we inevitably do a Sesame Street episode, whenever that is. The next segment is with an actor named Fred Newman, who makes the word tickle appear. And we get a little bit of physical comedy with him. Now, Lucas, do you know who Fred Newman is?
I don't know who Fred Newman is. I will say that this, much like the other segment involving tickling, made me a little bit uncomfortable. But I will say that Fred Newman's shell kind of parka jacket that he's wearing, actually his whole look here with the mod neck white turtleneck and the shell North Face Columbia jacket is quite a look. Fred Newman's got some great mountain wear style.
So Fred Newman, as I was looking him up, he's been an associate of Garrison Keillor for a long time, but he's also done quite a bit of voice work. So he was a bunch of voices on Doug. He was the voice of Pork Chop, Doug's dog. He was Mr. Dink. He was Skeeter. And he's credited in the first Gremlins movie as the voice of the Gremlins.
Oh my goodness! All of them?
I think so. Does
he do Gizmo as well?
I don't think he's Gizmo because Howie Mandel was Gizmo, but the voices of the assorted Gremlins is to Fred Newman.
Well, I take back everything I said. Fred Newman's a legend. Oh my goodness, that means he's the Gremlins who are smoking in the bar and stuff. Oh, that's delightful.
Well, and speaking of legend, our next segment is The Word Doctor with Dr. Ruth Wordheimer. And I was like, this lady playing Dr. Ruth seems to be pretty important. I wonder if she's anybody. Yeah, that's the real Dr. Ruth. And that might not mean a lot to some of our younger listeners, but I guess to me, I can't claim to know a lot about Dr. Ruth either, but it's one of those, cultural touchstones, I guess you could say, that kind of just exists in pop culture, especially for me growing up in the 1990s. Dr. Ruth's a quick punchline.
Well, I when you were talking about our younger listeners, you could count me into that segment because I didn't know what you were talking about, and I just did a quick Google search, and this is not what I was expecting.
So Dr. Ruth, I would say to our parents' generation, is a quite famous sex therapist who is still alive today. I believe she's 98 or something?
92.
92, excuse me.
Born in 1928.
In Germany. So she went through it and became a world-renowned like columnist, advice columnist around sex. And,
Holocaust survivor.
yes. So she's had a fascinating life. She's a fascinating woman, and it's just like among the many things that Dr. Ruth is giving advice to, she gives advice to a monkey on how to say the word intelligent, because her thing, it seems to be, she breaks down big words into their smaller parts so that you can say something like intelligent.
Couple things about this. The monkey burst through her door without opening it. Secondly, the monkey's wearing a Hawaiian shirt. And thirdly, the monkey has some sort of, I couldn't quite tell if this was a New Jersey or like Brooklyn accent, but some sort of kind of New York area, tri-state area accent. And the monkey is in a state of duress, Will. The monkey's very upset.
I'm ooh-ooh-ahing over here. But yes, eventually Dr. Ruth is able to break down intelligent for him, and he's able to pronounce it. She seems like a very pleasant lady, so I'm glad that she was game for this regular segment.
Will, I'm glad I have to close this Dr. Ruth Google search, because I'm seeing a video here on her Good Morning America saying, I'm 86 and I have sex all the time. So we're just going to move on from, and here's a picture with her with Obama.
Hell yeah. The next segment is my favorite. It is Silent E. And it's another animated segment where there is basically a personified version of the letter E who is wearing this like hat and trench coat. And the idea is...
He's like Rorschach.
Yeah, he does look like... Yeah, it is dressed like Rorschach. You're right. And the idea is that Silent E sneaks up to other words and creates different ones. So he turns twin into twine, or tub into tube, and basically just creates mischief wherever he goes.
Well, it's given this really, like, this could be, like, a little funny, like, oh, look, he turned this into this, but the whole thing is made to look really sinister. Like, Silent E is, like, purposefully drawn and designed and moves around like a total sketch bag. Like,
but it's also, like, musical. Like, there's a tune to go with it, so it's a little jaunty. Yeah,
it's jaunty, but it's like a little bit ominous. Like when he turns the twin into twine, the twins are like nuzzling up against one another. Like they're like, "Oh, I love my twin." And then when he turns it into twine, the twin is just like shocked and horrified that his brother is presumably dead and is now a giant inanimate like piece of twine.
It's a real Rorschach move. So Silent E, like, and there is a whole thing of, like, there's a policeman trying to catch Silent E for all of his crimes, and eventually the policeman puts Silent E behind bars, and Silent E asks to see the pin that the cop is wearing, and it's funny in the sense that she's just like, well, I don't see anything wrong with that, and it's like, of course, it's a kid's show, so you have to be very broad, and I just gotta kick out of that. So he turns the word pin into pine, and that sprouts a pine tree that Silent E is able to use to climb away. I just thought that this was a really interesting idea, and it was very fun to look at, and I really liked the song, too.
And I believe that this is a returning segment, that Silent E that we haven't seen the last of Silent E.
And it's a fun way to think about it, like just the prospect of the Silent E, which I imagine for people who are just learning the English language can be kind of tough to grasp sometimes. The rest of the episode is kind of back to the main plot, where Leona and Lionel, they got exactly 541 pieces of fan mail on the Little Brown Mouse fan club website that they made. And so they asked Click to digitize it all so that they can send it to the Little Brown Mouse in the book. And we do get another segment of Between the Covers, where Cleo reveals the fan mail to the little mouse, who is very happy. But with the little mouse gone, there's nobody to save the lion from the poachers, and Cleo accidentally gets set up in the net here. And it just so happens that at that point, Click's had enough. Click's saying, I'm out of here, you can have your little brown mouse, nobody wants me anymore, nobody needs me. But of course they call out for Click, and after a little bit of cajoling, Click saves the day and gets Cleo out of there.
I will say it was weird to see like Click on like just city streets.
You're right.
With,
There's
feet walking by. It's like there's something like in the context of the library. The library is so obviously like a set for these puppets to exist in. There's something odd about like Click just roaming around with like dudes in Adidas walking by like a trash can.
Reminds me a bit of the opening of the first Super Smash Brothers game, and Pikachu's just out in the wild among people. And that's basically the end of the show. After that point, it's like, go to pbskids.org or America Online keyword PBS Kids. And make sure you have a designated reader in your home. That seems to be a typical episode of Between the Lions, save for a couple of segments that we weren't able to check out that are in other episodes. Lucas, Between the Lions, did it hold up for you?
I think it did. I was really pleasantly surprised. Now, I was probably getting something a little bit extra out of it that I wouldn't be if I hadn't seen it before, and that it was like a really fun trip down memory lane. I have a lot of nostalgia for this show. But the thing that really stuck in my head was the kind of non-stop pace of Between the Lions, and how it's just like section, bit. And it really got me thinking about, we've had a lot of conversations, particularly about, and this is a little bit of an unfair comparison, the much older shows on PBS. For instance, like the Mr. Rogers episode, and we've had a lot of conversations about like, okay, does this show hold up? Could you show this to a kid now? And we always end up talking about, kids' attention spans, they're so short, they got their apps and their Fortnite. I'm confident in saying that I bet you could show this to any young kid and they'd still be into it. It's got the pace of like a YouTube video. It feels like Robot Chicken or something. Like
a little bit, yeah.
The second you're starting to get tired of a bit, and there are some simplistic bits. We're 25 years old. We know like how a silent E works, right? This is really, really kind of remedial material we're dealing with, intended for a really young audience. But because the pace is, for lack of a better term, no pun intended, we're talking about lions here, the pace is so ferocious, it never really gives you a chance to be bored, because not only is it switching up kind of the format of trying to teach you, it's completely switching up the art style, it's completely switching up the music. So even as an adult, and all this stuff is, with the exception of the actual storybook, which you're right, the animation's a little bit poopy there, but everything else is like super well made. You can tell there's money behind it, because each of the individual animated bits and all the live action bits have such a different look and feel, but it's all very sleek and produced. And there's like celebs. So it never really gives you a chance to get bored, even though it's all this like really, really basic educational material. So I was really surprised with Between the Lions, to be honest, because I thought it was going to be fun from a nostalgia perspective.
Yeah.
But at no point did I realize that we might have found one of these like timeless PBS shows that you could really show a kid in any era and it would still be entertaining.
I agree. We've definitely found the low watermark of these PBS Kids shows at this point, or at least what is so far for us, of like those types of shows that it's really like, this isn't even fun from a nostalgia perspective, or, there's nothing you can appreciate about this from an adult's perspective. It literally is just a kids show for children. But there is something here, and I think it does benefit a lot from having, the crew behind Sesame Street and the Muppets behind this, because there's a definite energy that it seems you can only get from, the Jim Henson Company and its like. Now, as I said before, I was in the exact wrong position to ever enjoy this as a kid, because it was too kiddie for me then. So I really didn't have any expectations, but I agree with what you said. It seems to be really good and proven through studies to be good at getting kids to read and engage with words and books. And it's just fun to boot. There's a lot of really great imagination behind everything here, from the Muppetry to the animation to the music. Like, it's really lively. And you're right, it does make sense why these cost so much, because not only are you going to so many different avenues, but you're doing it at a high enough quality for, many, many episodes. So I really have to commend the show for being as good as it is. And I feel like even still, it's not talked about enough, I would say. There are plenty of our patrons and other people who remember Between the Lions, but I think that this could definitely, I would still play this today. You mentioned before how there's a timeless quality to it, and I definitely think that it would be a great addition to any children's television lineup that would have it. So I think that Between the Lions, we have said before that some of these shows could use a remake. I don't think Between the Lions needs to be remade at all. I just think you put it on TV now, and you're good. You're golden, especially having such a relationship with Sesame Street. So here's hoping that maybe in some way or some fashion, maybe through, I don't know, HBO Max or something, since that's where the Sesame Street is going, maybe a new generation of kids can enjoy this and benefit from it as well. Because I think this is a surprisingly special show that I'm glad that we took the time to go back and discover or rediscover, in your case. Speaking of in your case, Lucas, that's the end of another episode of For the Kids. And it looks like it's going to be your turn to pick a PBS Kids program.
Well, Will, ¿Dónde está biblioteca? Por favor?
This could be a couple of things, so I'm waiting for the L bit to play out.
De los míos personal? El Dragoon? El Will? It's
Please continue to.
As you can see, Will, my Spanish needs a little bit of work. It turns out I'm not really good at Spanish. We don't really learn it in the Canadian school system. I'm looking for some sort of maybe children's television program to help me kind of freshen up on my Espanol, and also been getting way into the Game of Thrones series of novels, and I'm just big into dragons. So I think Maya and Miguel's just not going to cut it. I'm thinking we watch Dragon Tales next week.
It is indeed almost time for Dragon Tales. So this will be interesting indeed. Now that's a show I have a surprising amount of experience with. Surprising in that there was a while where I didn't think I would ever watch an episode. But we'll be talking about Dragon Tales next time, which interesting indeed. Yeah, I wonder about this one.
We're coming up on Halloween, so in honor of El Muerto, the Day of the Dead. What is it called?
Dia de los Muertos.
Yeah, Dia de los Muertos. We're traveling down south with our favorite dragon friends.
Yeah, so we're going to talk to Ord and Emmy and Zach and Wheezy and Quetzal, whose names I only remember because of the theme song. Next time on For the Kids, it's going to be Dragon Tales. Also, patrons, keep an eye out. In the next few days, I'm going to be putting up an update about our schedule in the month of November. It's going to be a little different than usual, and some cool surprises to come. So make sure to check that out on the Patreon. It's going to be available to everybody, including non-patrons. And it's just a little update of what things are going to be looking like very, very soon. So until the next time when we all go to Dragonland, for Lucas Mancini, my name's Will Young, and that was...
PBS.